Hey everyone, welcome to Surfsoon, a numerically rated surfcraft review series. If you dig this episode, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get to the show. In this episode, Alex will be reviewing a 5/8 Bobby Quad by Channel Island Surfboards. The Bobby Quad is Bobby Martinez's gutless wave design. Coming off thrusters, Bobby wanted a wide outline with a lower rocker to help him push through flat spots with ease. While that maintains speed, Bobby decided on a generous double concave in the tail for lift and a quad setup for drive, so it performs to his standards. Will the Bobby Quad meet a groveler's standards? Well, let's get a closer look. The rocker, like other grovelers, is on the lower side for this rail line. The rails are full in the nose, to a full almost down rail, to a standard shortboard rail in the tail, with hard edge starting 20 inches from the tail. The bottom has a deep single to a double concave to V behind the fins.
Cool, so for first thoughts, I really didn't know what to think with a tail like this. This is something that is definitely new to me. I know that the outline looks a lot like a pod, and that was something that I really liked. I also like the high five that Channel Islands made a couple years ago. I had one of those that was really good. In addition to that, I've never really ridden quads. I've ridden them in good waves, and that was really about it. As far as small surf, it was something that is definitely new to me, so I was excited to try it out. Along with that, the board is a little bit bigger than what I normally ride, so I wasn't exactly sure what to expect when I first gave it a go. But first thoughts, it felt really good. It was definitely thick through the chest, which is something that I like in pretty much all of my boards, and then pretty thin through the tail. So I'm excited to give it a shot. So for maneuver, I gave this a 7. It felt really good on my backhand for whatever reason. That was definitely something that I was not expecting. It felt sort of like once I took off and got like that first pump in, I was able to get a bunch of speed down the line and then, be able to do like a couple quick hits, couple backside turns, and that was definitely something that was unexpected, especially given how wide the tail was and how thick it is through the middle of the board. As far as on my front hand, it was a little bit less maneuverable than what I'm used to, because I'm used to riding a lot of twin fins, a lot of thrusters, and definitely a bit more of a narrower tail, a little bit narrower through the back half of the board too. So that was something that I felt like once I would get into the sweet spot on the board backhand, it felt really good. Front side, I didn't get as many opportunities to try it out, but for the most part, I did like it. It was just those like pocket carves, I would say, that are more geared towards a thruster that I wasn't able to get the same line, but that was definitely just something that I had to get used to. So as far as drive, I gave it an 8. I think that's definitely due to a couple things. One of which, like I was saying before, is I don't really ride quads ever. I think that is part of it. I definitely felt a lot more speed, at least right off the jump, especially on my backhand once I got that first pump in. Felt like it was definitely going a bit quicker than I normally do with a thruster. Also, I think part of that is just how thick it is through the center of the board. And also just the fact that it's a little bit bigger than the boards that I normally ride. So, it definitely felt like, at least paddling into the waves, I had a lot more speed going in than I normally do. Whereas like on a thruster or some of my other twin fins, I don't feel that same level of, I guess, like just push off the takeoff, so to speak. Front side, I felt the same thing. I felt like once I got that first, at least like took like a high line and got one little push off the bottom, then it felt like it really wanted to go. So it was definitely interesting to see like how quick you go off the takeoff. So as far as volume distribution and duck dive, I gave it a 9. It's pretty thick through at least the center and then the chest of the board. The nose has a little bit of thickness, which is nice too, because I do generally like boards that are a little bit more of a wide point forward and added foam under the chest. Towards the middle of the board, I would say, and the back half of the board, it's still pretty thick. And then the tail, I mean, it narrows out a bit in the tail, but it's definitely not as thin as I have on some of my other shortboards, which is nice too. And also surprising, just given how well it worked backside. That was something that definitely was shocking to me. As far as duck dive, as thick as it is and as beefy under the chest, I really didn't have any issues duck diving. I mean, given the size of the board, not that it's that much bigger than what I normally ride, I mean, it worked just fine, and definitely something that that I enjoyed. So for paddling, I scored it at a 9. I think this is definitely due to a couple different things. One, I think the board has a lot more foam under the chest than most of my other boards do, which is nice. Honestly, the first session I had on it, it sort of gave it like I know it's only a 5/8, but it sort of had a step-up feel to it when I was paddling into a couple waves, just because of how much quicker I was moving than my other boards. Not that I sink on my other shortboards or twin fins, but I mean, the volume on this thing is definitely beefier than what I normally ride. It's around 34 liters of foam, which is, you know, I generally ride anywhere from like 29 to 30, pushing 31 on certain boards at the very most. So that was something that was really nice actually, and it was surprising to see how maneuverable it was, you know, given the added foam on it. So for special moments, I gave this board an 8. There were definitely a couple different things that I want to touch on here. First of which is, you know, when I first picked up the board, I was just excited to get it in the water. The waves were horrible. It was around knee high, maybe a thigh high set, and just blown out south wind. Honestly, a day that I never would have even surfed had I not gotten a new board. I took it out, and like I was saying before with the whole step up feel, the board was able to get into waves super early, and waves that I honestly would have never caught if I was riding my standard shortboard or even my twin fin in small waves. So that was something that was really interesting to me, is just how many more waves I was able to catch with this. The other piece of this I would say is the quad feel. You know, it was something that I definitely was not used to in small surf. I didn't know how it would go, and it felt really good on my backhand. It was definitely something that I was surprised about, given, you know, like I was saying before, how wide the tail is in the board, and given the extra foam under the chest, it was interesting to see how maneuverable it still was, and also had that extra speed. For fins, obviously this is a quad. Dean, our local Channel Islands rep that hooked us up with this board, gave us a set of Aircore fins. They're mediums. I normally like to ride my small wave boards with large fins, which I thought was definitely interesting, riding a set of mediums. We didn't have waves that were especially big for this review. It was definitely only like 2 to 3 feet at best, but it still felt like once you got into the pocket with these, the board just kind of wanted to go. And it was interesting too, because I like to ride a lot of twin keels. I ride like a small little twinny that in the same style waves, and it's, you know, it's definitely a bit more skatier, as opposed to, you know, these fins where it felt like once you got into the pocket, the board just kind of wanted to fly. I do think you probably sacrifice a little bit of maneuverability as opposed to riding keels in that style surf, but you know, you definitely get a lot more speed when the waves actually have a pocket to them, which I thought was nice when the waves got a little bit better. So for final thoughts, my recommendation to somebody that's interested in trying this out, I would say that it definitely excelled the most for me when the waves got a little bit better, which I feel like is the case for most boards, but it worked well when the waves were pretty junky, you know. I do think that while this board definitely isn't like a one board quiver, I do think that it's a nice board to have in your quiver if you want to, you know, if you want to have something that you could turn, you can move around, you can get some good speed on when the waves are smaller, and you don't have to ride something, you know, that's in the mid-length or longboard range. I do think it works well for that, and I do also think that it would work well when the waves got a little bit bigger, like, you know, 2, 3, 4 foot. I think would be great. I don't think that it would be the board to ride when the waves are pumping. If the waves are super steep and, you know, you want to do turns that are a little bit more in the pocket and something a little bit more critical. But anything under 4 foot, I think this board would be perfect, and I think it's something that people would really love to try out. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you liked this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to share, comment, and all that good stuff. Until next time, there are always waves on the way, so hang tight, surf soon.